Welcome in to the Brent Hughes Show. Live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Top Fan TV on YouTube, you name it. You want to listen, you can find me. Another great weekend in the NFL, NFC and AFC Championship games. A beautiful championship weekend. The NFL hasn't slowed down for a number of weeks. We've just gotten games down to the end of the wire non-stop. Joe Burrow prevails. The Chiefs go down. Matthew Stafford proves he can do it. And is it over for Jimmy G in San Francisco? We'll get into all those things. My top 5 takeaways from this weekend in the NFL. We'll get to those also. And the Chicago Bears have named their new head coach. They've named their new offensive coordinator after they hired their GM. Justin Fields has some new guys to look up to in the organization. And hopefully, just like the Bengals, 4 wins last year. Now they're in the Super Bowl. Maybe something big happens for the Bears. I know the Bengals are giving a lot of lower-seeded teams and small markets a lot of hope. But let's start right there with the Bengals and Joe Burrow. And personally, I'm starting to become a really big fan of Joe Burrow, right? He's got the confidence, all the confidence in the world. I don't think it's cocky at all. He's got the style, rocking chains, buffs, smoking cigars after victories. He's in the locker room dancing with his guys. He's been doing that back since the days at LSU. But what's interesting about Joe Burrow is that, which I can confidently say, is I haven't seen the guy fold yet. He has to transfer to LSU because he's not starting at Ohio State. So he transfers to LSU, and not only does he put together the greatest season in the history of college football at the quarterback position, but he wins the Heisman and he wins the championship game. He's then drafted to the Bengals, a bottom feeder NFL franchise. I mean, they're the only franchise in the league that doesn't even have an indoor training facility, let alone a complete roster. He's drafted to the Bengals. They start winning more games. It's clear that they've found a franchise quarterback. He goes through a catastrophic knee injury and misses the rest of the season. He's in a brace coming into this year. And not only do I think he should win Comeback Player of the Year, but now he's in the Super Bowl. Take a step back to last year's draft, Jamar Chase or an offensive lineman. Well, Joe Burrow just screwed up his knee, so it's quite obvious that the Bengals should take a lineman, right? No, they don't take Penei Sewell. They don't take the star left tackle. They take his guy. He said, I want Jamar Chase from LSU. It can be special. Take the wide receiver. I'll figure out how to protect myself in the pocket. Coming off a knee injury. Makes the playoffs. Beats the Raiders in round 1. Upsets the number 1 seed in the AFC, the Tennessee Titans, in round 2. Puts together a game-winning drive for Evan McPherson to hit the game-winning field goal. Another stud on that team. And then now he upsets Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in an AFC Championship game with a second-half comeback performance for the ages. I haven't seen Joe Burrow fold. At every level, guys thought that he would not make it. I mean, it wasn't going well at Ohio State. Okay, he's not that talented. He's not going to be that good at LSU. LSU's never produced a star quarterback. Well, Joe Burrow's a star quarterback. Wins the championship. The best season of a college football quarterback in the history of the game. He hasn't folded. And so they're going into this Super Bowl, and quite honestly, I don't expect him to fold. If the Bengals were to lose, I don't think it's going to be his fault. Joe Burrow has proven to us year in, year out, round in and round out of these playoffs, that he has come to play. I mean, they're down at one point 21-3. And they make the comeback. So I'm a big fan of Joe Burrow. I think he's the real deal. I said last week that he's an elite quarterback, and everybody at this point has to agree with that. But what happened in that AFC Championship game outside of Joe Burrow always being there when it matters? Well, the Kansas City Chiefs got a little greedy this weekend. They were up 21-3 at one point. The Bengals cut the lead down to 11. And just before halftime, Mahomes and the Chiefs have a chance to take that lead back up to 18, go into the locker room with a commanding lead, and hopefully put away another AFC Championship game and head to the Super Bowl for the fourth straight year. But that's not what happened. Patrick Mahomes made a mistake. He threw to Tyreek Hill in the flat with 5 seconds to go. The Bengals defense stepped up just like they did all the rest of the game in the second half and got a stop when it mattered. That was the changing moment of that football game. If they would have scored there, I think it would have gotten scary. It would have gotten to the point where, wow, we're really down to the Chiefs. I mean, these people we're starting to think that this is going to be a blowout and the Chiefs might put up 42 points. But the lead was cut to 11. The Bengals were still in the game. The Chiefs failed to score in that final possession. They could have walked away with 3 points, let alone 7, walked away with 0 instead. And next thing you know, just like week 17, the Bengals were down 11 to the Chiefs heading into the break at halftime. The announcers referenced it going into the break, and it's exactly what happened again. The Chiefs started to revert back to that football team that we saw in the beginning of the year when they were around 4 or 5 or so in the standings. They got more wild on offense. The defense didn't step up. Patrick Mahomes started to make mistakes, throwing costly interceptions, turning the ball over. I mean, in that last quarter alone, Mahomes fumbled the ball. He nearly threw an interception on a comeback route to the right side, and then he chucked it up to Tyreek Hill into double coverage in overtime, and that sealed the game. So that's what happened. The Chiefs got greedy at halftime. I think that inspired the Bengals. I think that inspired Joe Burrow. Hey, we're only down 11. That's 2 possessions. We can still win this football game. And that's exactly what they did. They came in, brought the game back, took the lead. The Chiefs stayed in it, took the thing to overtime, won the toss. And Patrick Mahomes made mistakes when he couldn't, which is a rare sight to see from him in the playoffs. But it's something that we saw from him in the regular season. And the Chiefs reverted back to their problems in the second half on Sunday. So now transitioning over to the NFC Championship game. And the Rams were the favorite coming into this game, right? The Niners had won 6 straight against the Rams. And despite that, the Rams were still the favorite on paper. It's the loaded roster. It's the fact that they're playing at home. They have the more dynamic, the better quarterback overall. They have 8 first-round picks on their roster. So the Rams, by all means, would be considered a super team. But the Niners have had their number. And they almost had their number again this past weekend because they had the lead in this football game. But coming down the stretch, Sean McVay took some gambles. They didn't even have any timeouts left. I thought it was over for the Rams. No timeouts left with 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter of an NFC Championship game, a close game, a divisional round game. This is the 3rd time these teams have played each other this year. I thought it was going to come down to the end. In a lot of ways, it did. And unfortunately for Jimmy G, it ended in a costly turnover in which he's just trying not to take a sack and throws it to the other football team. It was proven yesterday that Matt Stafford just needed a good roster, and now he's in the Super Bowl. And unfortunately for the 49ers, unfortunately for Jimmy G, that narrative was proven as well. That Jimmy G, he's brought in to not lose the game. And yesterday, when it mattered, when they had to make plays, when Kyle Shanahan had to stop relying on the run, they put the ball in the hands of Jimmy G in the fourth quarter, and he couldn't handle it. San Francisco spoils their opportunity to get to the Super Bowl for the 2nd time in the last 3 seasons, which in a lot of ways is mind-blowing in itself. The fact that they've gotten this far and nobody believes in their quarterback. Maybe that says a lot about the head coach. Maybe that says a lot about the football team around Jimmy. Maybe we're not giving Jimmy enough credit for just being a really good game manager. But when you're throwing interceptions and turning the ball over, when the game matters most, now you're going to have people calling for Trey Lance's name. And I think that's exactly what's going to happen next season. I think that was the last time we see Jimmy G throw a pass as the starting quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers in a regular season game or in the playoffs. Okay, now it's time for my top 5 takeaways from the NFL this weekend. Number 1, the league should change the overtime rules in the playoffs. We got to see this past weekend what it was like when both teams get to touch the football. Last week, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen were both on fire. Both offenses were on fire. Whoever got the ball first was going to score. Neither defense was stopping anybody. Mahomes and the Chiefs get the toss. They win the game. This week, due to the luck of a Patrick Mahomes interception, we get the chance to see what it looks like when both teams get to touch the football. In the playoffs, that's important. We got to see the Bengals and Joe Burrow put together a game-winning drive once they got the chance to touch the football. It should be set up where both teams get to touch the ball. After that, it's sudden death. It's good for the game. It makes sure that the better team that day wins in the NFL. We need to make that change for the playoffs. Number 2, Trey Lance is going to be the starting quarterback for the 49ers next year. Jimmy G, his job all year, be the game manager. We have a good football team. We run the ball with the best in the league. Our defense is athletic. It's solid. We get to the football quickly. We have good linebackers. Jimmy, play the quarterback position and don't turn the ball over. What happens in the crunch time of the game? He gives the ball to the Rams. The 2 biggest memories we have of Jimmy G in the playoffs now are going to be that missed throw in the Super Bowl that lost them the game, that could have won them the game, and now this costly turnover at the end of this NFC Championship game. It's over for Jimmy G. The Niners are going to be looking to trade Lance, fair or not. Number 3, Baker Mayfield. His stock dropped yesterday. Odell Beckham Jr. has been an absolute maniac since he's joined the Rams. Yards, catches, touchdowns, you name it. People started to question whether Odell Beckham wasn't the same receiver, whether injuries had gotten the best of him. Yesterday for the Rams, he put another 9 catches for 113 yards. He gets with a veteran quarterback like Eli Manning or Matt Stafford in his prime, and he's a very productive wide receiver, one of the best in the league. Baker Mayfield looked bad yesterday. Odell's father, his video, looks 100% accurate now. Number 4, we crowned Patrick Mahomes way too early. He won the Super Bowl, got his $50 million a year on a $500,000 contract, the biggest we've ever seen. That's fine. He deserves it. He's that talented. But we started talking about Patrick Mahomes like he was going to rattle off 8 Super Bowls and eclipse Tom Brady in the blink of an eye. Well, no, it's a lot harder than it looks. Brady went a decade without winning a Super Bowl. It takes time. We can talk about Mahomes with Rodgers, fine. They both got one. They're both crazy talented, the arm strength, the arm angles, you name it. We can talk about him with guys like that, but we can't talk about him with Montana. We can't talk about him with Brady. We can't talk about him with Peyton Manning yet. He's got to win multiple Super Bowls first. We got to give him, can he have at least 5, 8 years in the league before we start talking about greatest quarterback of all time? Greatest talent, maybe. Greatest quarterback, absolutely not. We can't say it yet. I hope he gets there, but we can't say it yet. Number 5, another bad look for the Detroit Lions. How bad are they? Matthew Stafford. The idea has literally been that he's a talented quarterback. He just needs guys around him. Well, okay, no, he turns the ball over. He had Calvin Johnson, and he still never won a playoff game. So clearly it's not the Lions' fault. It's looking a lot that way this morning. Nobody expected the Lions to be able to put together a team like the Rams have with Cooper Kupp, Odell Beckham Jr., Aaron Donald, Von Miller, you name it. It's a super team. 8 first-round picks on that roster. But to put him around competent receivers, competent guys on offense, a good defense, the guy threw for 370-plus yards yesterday, and he's headed to the Super Bowl in his first year with Los Angeles. Bad look for Detroit. Their stock's going down today as well. Okay, the last thing I want to do today is talk a little Chicago Bears. The Bears have finished their hiring cycle. Brand new GM Ryan Poles is in the building from Kansas City. brand new head coach in from Indianapolis. Matt Eberflus, their defensive coordinator, he's taking over as the head coach for the Bears. And the most important hire has now been made. Luke Getsy is coming over, the quarterback coach from the Green Bay Packers. We've stolen him from our arch rival, and he's now going to be the offensive coordinator and the play caller for Justin Fields and the Bears moving forward. The Packers were interested in promoting Getsy to their offensive coordinator position, with Nathaniel Hackett leaving to be the head coach of the Denver Broncos. The issue with that is that Matt LaFleur is the play caller in Green Bay. He wasn't willing to give that up. So Getsy wanted an opportunity in the NFL to call plays. Of course, it's the natural promotion to be able to call plays at an offensive coordinator position, and he's going to get that opportunity in Chicago. This was the most important hire of the cycle, right? Obviously, you have to get a GM. Obviously, you have to get a head coach. But after you make the decision to hire a defensive coordinator as the head coach, when we have a second-year quarterback coming in, a top 11 pick, very, very talented, 6'3", 230, big arm. And with how bad the offense was last year and the year before and the year before that, it's important to get somebody in the building who can develop a quarterback and who can start a real offense. Luke Getsy comes from the the Mike Shanahan tree of coaches, which has produced Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Matt LaFleur. So now Getsy's coming in. He's going to be running that same type of offense for the Bears, which is a very encouraging thing to think about, because Shanahan, McVay, and LaFleur have all been very successful in their offensive schemes. We expect Getsy to do the same thing. We expect Hackett, for that matter, to do that in Denver. That's the scheme around the league that is big right now. Those are the powerful offenses. That's what's coming to Chicago. So what I'm hoping and what I trust that's happening is that this is the hire that needs to be made. And I think that now that Justin Fields has a full offseason to work in an offense that's going to embrace his talent, that's going to embrace his abilities, and hopefully coaches that know what they're doing, who can use his skill sets to the best of their ability, this is going to be a major, major year for the Bears. It's going to be a major year for Justin Fields, because this is going to be the year where we should truly get to see what he's like in a high-level offensive system if all goes well. Personally, you guys know, if you listened to my pod from a couple weeks ago, I wanted the Bears to hire an offensive coordinator to be the head coach. Many reasons. One, for the same reasons I just mentioned with Justin Fields, we need development on offense. The second reason is that same thing we could see with Getsy here. If he's super good and the Bears offense, let's just say, skyrockets like we all want it to, well, then there's a good chance that just like Nathaniel Hackett, just like Brian Daboll, just like Byron Leftwich is being interviewed, you could lose your offensive coordinator in the next head coaching cycle. That's a real risk that you make when you think you're hiring a star offensive coordinator. So I wanted them to hire an offensive coordinator to be the head coach, but that didn't happen. Eberflus seems like he's got his head on straight. None of us can act like we know exactly how he's going to turn out, because we don't. But I think the hire of Getsy was a great start to get offensive firepower, and I'm looking forward to what the Bears can do next year. Very excited, very happy for Justin Fields that he's got a guy in the building who can be all in on offense. Looking forward to this next season.